Welcome to Business Innovators Radio, featuring industry influencers and trendsetters sharing proven strategies to help you build a better life right now.
Hello and welcome to this episode of our show. This is your host, Keith Doherty. Today our special guest is top real estate agent Thomas Gasbarro of Premier Sotheby's International Realty based out of Naples, Florida. After completing college and graduate school in Rhode Island, Thomas left his job at his family's 118-year-old wine business to start his own business in Naples, Florida. He earned his real estate license in 2000 and immediately began working in the sales capacity in various developments. In 2002, Thomas joined Premier Sotheby's, where he's been amongst the top producing associates for nearly 15 years. All right, with all that said, Thomas, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Keith. I'm very pleased to be here and participate with you this morning.
Thomas, if we could start for our listeners, what led you into real estate? Was it something that you always knew you wanted to do, or did you maybe stumble into it?
I actually stumbled into it. It was a perfect storm of completely unrelated events. I was consulting in the restaurant business, and a local broker, overheard me speaking to a group of people one afternoon and approached me and encouraged me to get into real estate immediately. And 17 years just about have gone by since then, and I haven't looked back.
And Thomas, do you think you could talk a little bit about what personal attributes, traits, or qualities you think have most contributed to the success that you've had in real estate?
Absolutely. Being able to cultivate and maintain relationships is essential in real estate. Also, managing a buyer or a seller's expectations is paramount. You don't want to overpromise and underdeliver in an ever-changing marketplace because it doesn't do you any good long-term for your individual success and the longevity of the relationship that you've worked so hard to cultivate and grow.
Excellent. And do you think you could give our listeners an example of when these traits have played a role in your path towards success?
Absolutely. We had a slight market downturn approximately 7 years ago, 2008, 2009, and the selling community was, they were looking around at each other wondering, who was going to sell first, and things were really slow. And being able to manage the expectations of my sellers at that time was key, because I wasn't over-promising them. I wasn't telling them the sale was on the horizon. I was encouraging them to maintain a certain posture with their price point, but also understand that, this was a process. And because I put them in that position from the get-go in a proper location at a proper price point, 9 times out of 10, the people were in position not to lose money. And that was a saving grace at that time. And, my clients never forgot it.
And Thomas, I think when anybody builds success, that usually the journey to get there isn't always, a perfect, easy path. A lot of times there's trials along the way. Can you talk a little bit about some of the adversities or trials that you had to overcome in order to achieve your goals? Absolutely.
There is an enormous amount of competition in my field. And when I say competition, I mean on the surface there is a inordinate amount of licensees. In the height of the market, for instance, in 2005, 2006, there were approximately 3,800 real estate agents in the greater Naples area. If you fast forward to today, there are nearly 9,000. So you are constantly being met with an influx of agents. And what happens is it thins out the marketplace, and it also lessens the overall trust of the buying and selling community with the professional real estate community. And so I'm constantly stepping over myths and innuendo and conjecture in our marketplace, and in the process trying to give people the greatest available information for them to make informed decisions. But when things really went south in 2009, there was just a very heavy pallor over the real estate community, and real estate agents were not. They were persona non grata for a little while because they didn't really have an individual stake in the properties that were being that were being sold. And as prices were starting to really tumble, people were really just unhappy with the profession. And as such, a lot of people fell out of the profession, and as it grew back, the people that were quality all along, they stayed. And, I I'm actually pretty proud that I managed to get through that adversity at that time and continue on now for what is just about my 17th year in the business.
And Thomas, I guess kind of on top of that, obviously, like you said, you had obstacles, but then you hit the major market crash, so why didn't you give up? What was your driving force to work through it?
I left a very comfortable family business back in 2000 to, follow a dream of a business of my own in what turned out to be arguably one of the most wonderful cities in the country, in Naples, Florida. And I was not about to go back as a failure. There was no way. I was going to do whatever it took to stay the course. And, I kept to my own mantra. I was always going to be honest with people. I was always going to give them the best possible advice, and I was always going to go as far as I could to meet their goals. And as such, it just played out in a perfect way. And the best part about that is because I had positioned these people to be in areas that were most likely to rebound first. And that's the way it played out. And for that, my recovery in the business was very quick. I think there was probably about a year where it was super slow, and then after that, it picked right back up. And then I was able to deal with the clients that were able to really benefit from the downturn, the people that waited on the sidelines. They perhaps had, an inkling that the market was about to take a downturn, and ultimately they would profit from that to a substantial extent.
Thomas, I guess looking forward, what's your vision for your business and your career, say, over the next 5 years?
The next 5 years, particularly in Naples, are going to be very interesting. You've seen a run-up in price points to levels that are higher than the pre-recession price points in certain areas. So I'm looking at the marketplace generally saying that something has to give. There will be, I think, a plateauing of price points in certain areas, while the other areas on the periphery will perhaps catch up, both from an inventory and price point standpoint. But over the next 5 years, it's going to be essential for my clients to really place themselves in the best position going forward. There's always an end game. There's always you always have to consider disposal of these properties as part of the purchase. And to that end, I counsel people that when they're buying today, that they need to look at holding these properties for 3, 5, 7 to 10 years. This is not a flipping economy anymore. You're not buying these homes and flipping them a year later for profit. We're going to see slower growth, but on a steadier scale rather than a meteoric growth. So for the next 5 years, I really think that you're going to see perhaps sales generally decline, price points plateau and maybe even soften a little bit, but you will not see the downturn that you saw in 2008 and 2009. And it's important for my people, for me really, to get my people on board with that philosophy.
And I guess kind of on top of that, what do you feel is the best way that you market yourself as a real estate professional so that you can have continual growth?
Just like they say, location is everything in real estate, I also say that for my profession, your reputation is everything. And I've been able to develop a, referral-based network of a core group of clients, let's call it 10 or 15 clients that have been with me for, 10 years plus now, that have done multiple purchases. And I count on them, and they are also happy to do so in terms of sending me referrals of their friends, family members, associates. And what I try to do is give those people, the priority. This is, I certainly wouldn't want my performance to reflect poorly for a past client of mine who has taken the time to recommend my services to someone close to them. So I don't do a lot of print advertising. Most of my marketing is either word of mouth or digital, web-based, and whatnot. But also, I also don't take on more than I can handle as an individual. I don't take on more than 10 listings at a time. I don't take on more than 10 buyer clients at a time, because I want to be able to give these people the best level of service. And that experience, more often than not, is very positive. And those people really go out of their way to pass my name along to someone that's, perhaps ready to make the jump into this paradise that we call home here.
And Thomas, I think sometimes you kind of mentioned a little earlier about, all the agents in the market and a lot of myths and having to deal and kind of cut through a lot of that. What do you think the biggest misconception or myth that people have about working with a real estate agent?
Well, the reputation for real estate agents in general is very poor. I would equate it to almost having the ethical backbone of a personal injury attorney, because obviously they don't share the greatest reputation either. And more often than not, we are looked at as a group of people that are, just want to make a sale to make the sale without concern for the person's financial well-being long term. And that is a big problem. And with the great number of agents that we have, we don't have a number of great agents. I would say that you could probably get rid of 80% of the people that have joined the profession in the last 3 years and not skip a beat in the marketplace. People have come in and they've gotten licensed because they see, the sales that are occurring and the money that is being made, but it's just not that simple. So, but from the outside looking in, this profession is looked at with perhaps a level of greed and a lack of ethical responsibility that, I try to overcome on a daily basis. And to illustrate that, I talk people out of sales. People tend to purchase here emotionally rather than on an informed basis. More often than not, people purchase here because they own substantial homes elsewhere, and this becomes a secondary or tertiary vacation property. So it's not housing per se. So when I talk somebody out of something, I do it for good reason. And at the expense of a paycheck, sure. But long term, the benefits are limitless. I'd rather maintain that relationship long term than be the one-hit wonder, and that's what you see in this marketplace today.
And Thomas, let's say you get a call from a family member or a friend, and they're in another state, and they want to sell their home. Now, obviously, with your 17 years of experience and connections, you could probably easily do a referral. But from a general advice standpoint, what advice would you give them about selecting an agent that could best serve their needs?
I would tell them to interview no fewer than 3 agents, and I would also tell them to look the agent in the eye and say, are you prepared to tell me something that I don't want to hear? A lot of times an agent will go into a listing appointment or work with a buyer and pump them up full of enthusiasm, and yet they're not telling the entire story. I just ran into the situation about 6 months ago with a cousin of mine trying to sell her home up in New England. Every realtor that she came across was ready to list at the highest price point. And in the end, she sold about 15 to 20% lower than those price points. And one of the agents that she interviewed told her where she fit in the marketplace at that time, but she didn't want to list with them. That should have been the person that she listed with. And, you just have to be with someone who has ethics and isn't afraid to upset you with facts. It is, not all real estate is, wine and roses. And sometimes you are the bearer of bad news and circumstances change. And I would choose that agent that's not afraid to lay it out to me in the most forthcoming way.
Excellent. And obviously, you're based in the Naples, Florida area, and if somebody's looking for real estate services or an agent in that specific area, what's the best way they can find out more information about you and how you can help them?
Because I work for a major brand of Sotheby's Real Estate, which is affiliated with the auction house, and we have a worldwide presence, someone could easily Google Sotheby's and specifically Premier Sotheby's and find me. I have an individual web page as well within the company framework. And, the people that come to Naples, generally, they're one of 2 classifications. They either are waiting to get in here and start a very happy and healthy retirement, or they're coming here for the first time. And that first-time visitor is typically someone that I like working with most often because, I see the excitement and in their eyes, and it's I like passing along some of the things that I've learned over the last 15 to 17 years here. The person that's been here a while, they come sometimes with inherent weariness because they've been on the roller coaster, but to convey to them that I have their best interests at heart is always my goal, whether they purchase or not on the first trip or the 10th trip. That makes no difference to me. I want to cultivate the relationship and see it through. And most often, I end up attending wedding anniversaries and christenings and everything else as a direct benefit of getting along with these people so well.
Excellent. Well, Thomas, obviously want to thank you for taking time out of your schedule to come here today and share all your professional real estate experience with our listeners. And if you're listening and you want to learn more about Thomas, below this interview we'll have a link to his site and any other contact information we have so you can see how Thomas can help you with your real estate needs. So with that said, everybody, until our next show, have a great day and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you very much. And I was very happy to participate this morning.
Thanks for listening to Business Innovators Radio. To hear all episodes featuring leading industry influencers and trendsetters, visit us online at businessinnovatorsradio.com today.